Hey, folks, welcome to the Be the Bright podcast. We're back again, and we're here with our special guest, Michael Lepp. And Jordan he knows Michael pretty well, and he's invited him on. And Michael, thanks for being here.
Hey, so it's Jordan's my only son, really, son. And I know his parents too, so they're probably good with that.
They'll let you claim me.
Great.
So
okay.
I guess we met about 15 years ago now. We were just talking about that. We met actually through your Zone 1. I had started racing, and Jason Fedler, who is a part of Arsenal now, so he's a part of this whole Ridge Supply crew. And Ronnie Dean kind of recommended me over to you. So we met, and I eventually found out who you were and everything you had done. So give us your quick introduction of yourself. Matt usually says it's like you just won an Oscar, so I'll steal his line on that one.
I've been doing this 40 years, which is hard for me to think about, but I was into sports science in the 70s, and I went and got my master's degree under two of the best sports science people I felt in the world at the time, Russ Pate, John Ivey. And I was excited. I thought sports science was the greatest, and running was coming along. And so I got into running and got that master's degree. And it was so cool that you can't make money doing that. No money can be made with that at the time. So I got into medicine and cardiology in specific because while I was taking care of heart patients and working testing heart patients, the cardiologist I work with let me dabble in the sports stuff in the Charlotte area and go ahead about. And so I did that with the Charlotte Hornets, the professional soccer team that Charlotte had at the time. But I got into cycling because I hurt my Achilles, and I really started to love cycling, and met George Hincapie, who was living in Charlotte at the time with his brother in his early years. So at that point, started talking to him and helping him with some stuff. Long story short, then met Bobby Julich, who was also on the team, who had a heart issue, arrhythmia issue. And then now I'm full blown into cycling. I started my own company, coaching company, Zone 1, and ended up being kind of the cardiology guy with pro cyclists. So we had a lot of pro cyclists come over to this country to be checked out from a heart standpoint, and fairly common issues with cyclists. And I do a lot of that with Bobby now. Bobby and I did a podcast, and very interesting. Had a lot of cyclists from around the country who had serious arrhythmias go get them checked out. So that's kind of a story up to the point where I got involved in motorsports through cycling. Joe Gibbs Racing is in the office park in Huntersville, North Carolina, where everybody trains during the off season because it's a lit, I don't know, what is it, Jordan, 2-mile loop.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's like 1.8, just shy of 2. It's perfect.
And I started to get irritated because it turned it into the most vicious racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the winter,
of
course.
In the winter, we're supposed to be operating in those lower two zones, right, Jordan?
Yep.
And but anyway, JD Gibbs, Joe's son, who passed away a couple of years ago, said, "Hey, you're a scientist. We need to fix these pit stops in motorsports." And a lot of us ride bikes here, so you can move your office in here, coach us in cycling, and make these athletes that do these pit stops better. I've been doing that for 15 years.
I was going to say right after we met was when so it was probably 06, because I remember we came down there and did some meetings with you and did some rides over there.
Yeah. So kind of retired from that a couple of years ago to now doing a lot of speaking and consulting. Do some consulting with U.S. Olympic athletes, and but still involved at JGR. We're in 4 races to go, trying to win a repeat as champion. So
yeah,
there it is.
So in short, been there and done a little bit of everything and worked with everybody
Yes.
in some form or fashion.
Mhm.
I know.
And changed a lot
Yeah.
of, in 40 years, you kind of, what you thought 40 years ago and what you think later is a lot of times different. So
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine that the science and, not the science, but the amount of information available over that time has grown. Like how does somebody know they have a heart arrhythmia? How does that even happen?
this sad part is sometimes they don't. When I got into this, there was no way of monitoring anything. We didn't even have heart rate monitors.
Right,
I think I have the original. I think I have the original polar heart rate monitor, and I think even when I was working with Jordan, heart rate monitoring was.
It wasn't as good as it is now.
For sure.
No, it's better now. And my Apple Watch here, I can take it and get an EKG and watch it. So the technology has, escalated.
Yeah.
And but heart rate monitors were the first way. When you look down there and suddenly you're 250 beats per minute,
Right.
Something's probably wrong, especially if you get lightheaded. But then power meters came along. When they first came along, they were like $3,000
Yeah.
for a power meter, so not everybody had them. Bobby and I talked on a podcast a couple months ago. The best thing in the world was power meters, and the worst thing in the world was power meters. And I think that's a way for me to tell you how I've changed. I take an integrative approach, and I think people need to do that. But my goal, and Jordan can tell you, is once you see what the numbers are, then feel your body, get inside your body and see what it feels like. The best athletes in the world, and I go back and tell a cool story. Frank Shorter, anybody remember Frank Shorter? He was one of the best distance runners in history. And he was running on a track down in Florida where I was. And there was really no monitoring except what? A stopwatch, right?
Yeah.
That was how you measured things. And they would tell Frank, okay, run a 50-second lap. And I go, you can't just tell him that. How's he going to know? We need a timer. And he'd come around and hit it 49.9, 50. He knew, he felt in his body how he felt when he was training. I think with all our monitoring today, which certainly I use, athletes have gotten away with how they, actually feel when they're training. They, you know what I mean? They're so dependent on that number, and they chase that number. So they could be having a horrible feeling day, but if they don't hit that average 270 watt goal, they think they had a bad day. Well, the bad news is you shouldn't have pushed it, but you're chasing that number on that screen. So I say the good news, we monitor, the monitoring stuff, which was my thing. I've now turned into more of a perceived exertion kind of a person combined with
you taught me that early on using the RPE scale and just working with that. And I remember there were times when we started working together when I was in college, and you would send me out there in the business park and you would make me stuff the heart rate monitor watch so I couldn't see it in my back jersey pocket. And you would make me go out there and suffer. And you're like, I don't want you to see the numbers. He was like, just go off how things feel. And, I still to this day, there's a lot of times riding now that I know, which I hadn't been riding as much lately, but I mean, I knew about where my power was. I wouldn't have to look at anything, and going off how I felt was awesome. And it paid off long run for me.
It's kind of funny. It's like society. We're glued to, that phone. Well, cyclists are glued not only their phone in their back pocket, but the power meter, the heart rate. I think my thing is a holistic training approach, and some of the best athletes develop that kind of holistic. And also, one of the reasons we do this is, man, it makes us feel good. We like to do it. Let's don't lose track of, it was a bad ride because the numbers weren't what they were supposed to be. And part of that I learned from JD Gibbs. I learned one of the things that there are 78 different movements in a pit stop that we measure. 78 movements.
Don't kill the pit stops. Don't kill the pit stops. I want to dig into that because it's fascinating.
That's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole 15-minute episode.
But the best athletes, even in that, they have a feel. They can come around and tell me that was 11 seconds. I said, how you didn't see the watch? I can tell. I can feel it. And I think those are the best athletes in endurance sports, in all of sports.
Yeah.
The guy that can feel what fast is.
I don't train as, like somebody who's doing a lot of racing, but I do use all of the, I've got power meters, I've got the heart rate monitor, I always have it on. I'm rocking the Whoop now, which is helping. And
excellent technology.
Yeah. But the thing that I've noticed is we do these max efforts that are right about where your threshold is, and they're maybe longer than what you would train for. So like this past weekend, the effort that we did as a 3-person group was almost 40 minutes. And so what I noticed was that when I would have my metrics, like power and heart rate and cadence, let's say, and then you got speed too. But the whole point is, when you're in a group or when you're in another dynamic and you have to maybe push yourself a little bit further than what you would, when I saw the metrics and they were not what I needed them to be, I almost instantly would mentally quit. And when I took those metrics away, like this past weekend, when we did that, I was able to ride literally another maybe 20 minutes longer than when I would have been like, no, I just got to shut it down. And that's all. Not like I did something out of my comfort zone. It was like my mind didn't step in there. The invisible metric that's like, no, you suck. You need to stop.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that too.
Metrics are a judgment.
Yeah.
And Jordan can tell you, I'm a Zen kind of a Buddhist kind of a guy, and judgment is one of our worst in society and everything. And you look at those numbers and you kind of judge yourself, and you can make, and say, I'm not everybody. Like I said, if you take a holistic approach and that's one piece of information. Here's the one thing about cycling. So I came from running when Jim Fix and everybody back in the 70s got running going. One of the things that's unique about cyclists is, so I would go out and run, and my friend Bob Nixon, Jordan probably knows Bob, we're the same age, and we would go out running at lunchtime out of my clinic there. I would go run. Runners never drop each other. They drop to the slowest pace.
Yeah.
When I got into cycling, what I found was unique is, who the hell are we going to drop today?
Yeah.
These conversations sound familiar, Matt.
Yeah.
Are you sweating a little bit?
Passive aggressive, like
not
on a whole nother level.
Yeah. And then when you get back, you hear about who got dropped that day.
Yeah.
And with running, we would go out at lunchtime. There's about 10 of us, and if somebody was having a bad day, everybody slowed down. In cycling, when I got into it, it was like,
if you're having a bad day,
put the hammer down, let's leave left. So
you need to learn how to get home, because
all the guys I ride with are Marines, and it's just kill or be killed. There's no friends. There's no rules.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's bad, but it is one of those things where one of the reasons we do this is all these great chemical things that it does to us. Exercising makes us feel better. It makes us healthier. It does these things. And so we can't lose track of what those things mean. And come back and say, oh, my heart rate didn't hit what I wanted to do, or I was supposed to be a threshold day. And I think the other thing that's happened I call it the CrossFit culture. And that is, in a 7-day cycle, and if you talk to any pro cyclist, a Tour de France cyclist, they'll tell you it's maybe during build phases, 3 high intensity efforts in a 7-day cycle. We got people now going 7 days a week, hammer time. And I say, I can probably call it Peloton culture now, or Zwift, or whatever. You show up at those things and you kind of pat yourself on the back when you've hammered yourself. Well, that's okay if you have a day in between, or you do every other day. But and like I said, CrossFit kind of started this. Man, I went to CrossFit 7 times last week.
Twice a day.
Twice a day. So we're in a different kind of time where high intensity is supposed to be a badge of honor, And it is if you bake the cake right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Michael, thanks for being here with this first episode with us. We're going to be back for a little bit more here with Michael Lepp.